on to today's topic, a topic that's near and dear to my heart as someone who's been in the marketing channel for a long time now. We've all heard the cats and dogs, you say potato, I say potato. Let's break out all of our ideas, bad juju therapy session on how we deal with sales and marketing and how we can coexist as a one big happy family. So I'd like to introduce Tim, Sam, and Greg to the call today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because they know them better than I do. And Tim, how about you start? You're my top corner there, so take it over.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. My name is Tim Rin. I am the marketing manager at Inovia Consulting. We're a Microsoft Dynamics Business Central partner. Anya kind of spoiled this a little bit, like on the back end before we jumped over, but I am actually celebrating an exciting milestone. On October 30th, I will have officially been at Inovia for 5 years. So
Awesome.
super excited. Also super excited to be here. This is my first time on the presenter side of this Marketing Academy. So I'm super excited to be here and excited to talk all about sales and marketing working together.
Yes, thank you and congratulations. Happy birthday. I don't know which one we want to go with, but 5 years is an impressive milestone these days in our channel. Sam?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I am Sam Bush. I am the marketing programs manager at Flowcast. I have been in the channel for going on 6 years. Love the Microsoft channel. You may have seen me at Dynamics Communities Summit last week, running around, taking selfies with everybody. But I am excited to just chat about sales and marketing alignment. I am in a demand gen kind of function and have been for a decent chunk of my career, and sales enablement is something that if you are in demand gen and you're not good at, then you are not going to be in demand gen long. So it is definitely something that is near and dear to me as well. So
I've been working with Sam for a couple of years now and always has really cool things to say. Very excited to hear what she has to say about the topic today. And last but definitely not least, Greg, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. First time being a presenter as well. My name is Greg Miles. I'm the marketing manager for iCEPS Technology Group. We're a Microsoft Business Central partner. I've been with iCEPS for over 14 years. Prior to marketing, I was in sales for over 10 years.
Ooh.
So I can definitely bring a unique perspective on how sales and marketing can work together.
Yeah,
so Greg, quick question for you. When is that big 15-year anniversary?
Next September 22nd.
Ooh,
but who's counting? Right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into the first question of the day. And this is really about how sales and marketing work together. So there'll be no, that's pretty much the theme of all of our questions moving forward. But Tim, what kind of content do you create and how do you work with your sales team to create this content?
Yeah, great question. So, we do a lot of content together with our sales team, and I don't really want to talk about the sort of stuff that everyone does, the blogs, the webinars, things like that. So I came up with 2 that we've done in the past, and then one that's a new opportunity that I thought would be interesting to share today. So the
Please.
first one is staff testimonial videos. So we actually recently upgraded our careers page just as an effort to try to get more people on our team. And obviously we've been interviewing everybody in the company, but sales is part of that. So just last week, actually, we had 2 people from our sales team in the hot seat, as I like to call it, to get interviewed for those testimonial videos. And that worked really well. I thought they were good videos. I'm excited to get back in the next couple of weeks and start editing it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Second one, wanted to talk about, if you don't know, Inovia has a podcast called the Inovia Conversation. And that's another activity that I get to work on with sales. Our 2 hosts, and for those who've been around the channel for a while, you may have heard their names, Steve Waltz and Jeff Pergolsky, have been hosting that podcast now for, I think, the past 3 years.
Fun.
So that's fun to sort of let those two unleash. And then I'm the guy who has to take the nonsense that they say and put it together into a finished
Mm.
listenable / watchable format, because we have video versions as well. So that's a lot of fun. Always am helping them out with the strategic direction of the podcast, but it's a lot of fun. They have such a good time with it. And
So what are some of the things you do to like reel them in? Because I can imagine the salespeople sometimes they can go in every which way direction. How do you get them to be like, okay, we have 45 minutes. Can you focus a little bit on this, but still keeping it, quasi natural for your audience?
I will tell you, I have not actually had to do a ton of coaching on that regard. They have been very on it since the get-go. Every once in a while I have a couple of strategic pointers, but I have been very lucky, and you'll hear that theme throughout me today. I have been very lucky to be a part of this team, and this team has made it very easy to work together with. But great question. The third thing, which is coming up in the future, we are going to be going on site with one of our customers and with one of our sales team members and doing a on-site video case study. So I'm super excited. At least since I've been here, we've not actually done one of those before. So exciting from all of the technical perspectives, all the new things that we get to come up with. But as well, like, I haven't really gotten to see our salespeople in action. So I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a good time.
And was it your sales team that recommended this client, or kind of vice versa? Like, who put this would be a good client to go meet? Was it you
He
or
put it
them?
in my ears. I did not have to reach out and ask for it. I mean, from time to time we say, who can we get a case study from? But yeah, another name that you may know from the space, Holly Cudel is the person that we're going to be doing that testimonial with. And she's a very big advocate for all of those things that marketing and sales can do together.
No, and I think case studies is a really important one, because as marketers, we're kind of removed from that end user standpoint. But so by having the sales team there and having that trust, and I think when you said you were super lucky to have a team that works really well together, that's worth its weight in gold. And I think that really helps
Absolutely
shine the marketing team and shine the sales team that much more. Sam, what about from your
other
side?
thing I would sort of add to that is, when we have our conversations with them, we get perspective from them. It's very easy for a marketer to get sort of stuck in our own little silo of the business, not to downplay all of the research that we do and the buyer personas we generate and stuff like that. But hearing from our salespeople what they're hearing the customers say directly to them, I think goes a long way.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think we would be amiss as marketers if we don't, listen to what they have to say, because they really are the feet on the street.
Yeah.
Sam, what about you?
Definitely. This is like my favorite topic on the agenda today. So I'm going to piggyback on a couple of things that Tim just said. So we also have a podcast that we work together on called Blood, Sweat, and Balance Sheets. We're an accounting software, close management. So goofy, but really fun. And we have kind of a variety of people, but one of our marketers is the host now instead of our CEO. So do a lot of things with that. Another thing that Tim said that we're kind of on the same, I feel like we're on the same track with what we're up to lately. We also do some employee like testimonials. Flowcast is made by accountants for accountants, and 70% of our frontline staff are all former accountants or auditors. So we do tons of content with them that's like, we understand your pain point because we've sat in your seat. And I feel like that story, you can parse in so many different ways to create this content together in a way that makes them as salespeople really comfortable, because they're on the sales side, but they're also an accountant. So really fun there. And then I was telling a bunch of friends and peers at Community Summit last week about customer proof points. That's like one of our biggest things that we're working together with sales on. So customer stories, customer quotes to add to email marketing or to outreach sequences and conversation pieces in the demo deck just really speak volumes to kind of how that customer or that prospect can see themselves in the same seat as a current customer. Another thing that I like really nerd out about, I've done this in every company I've ever worked at, and that is solution selling kind of landing pages on an intranet. So we use Google Suite of products, unlike a lot of people in the channel, but we have an intranet page that is focused specifically on problem pain. And then all of the content that we have that speaks to that all kind of bundled together. So as a new sales rep, you kind of get started, you go through our training, and then you have this kind of safe haven for you where if someone says, hey, I spend 10 days on the close and I want to spend 4, you go to the landing page and you say, I'm looking for some content to send out, and it's all living here. And we co-produce that together based on conversations that happen in the sales cycle. And we iterate on that once, maybe twice a year. Needs to be more often, but volume wise makes it kind of hard. But that I feel like has made me a sales enabled marketer, really sitting down with the salespeople and saying, what are the 3 things that you said this week that somebody had a question about, or something we need to tell a story to, create that and add it to the landing page. And that landing page is internal only. It's like a sales resource for them. So some of it is really, really just in the weeds on like, here's specifically a talk track. If you're not sure what to say, here's that. So a lot of work goes into it, but high payoff for sure, because they kind of stop bugging you on the little teeny things because they've got the big stuff. So
I personally am like, oh my goodness, we need to like start this. Because I think one thing
Yeah.
as a marketer is someone will be like, oh, I'm looking for this. And then you're like, I made this 6 months ago.
Yep,
And by
yep.
having it all in one spot, I think that's brilliant. And having those 3 talking points every week while it's fresh in their head. Everyone take notes. Mike
Exactly.
is already creeping your website looking for it.
I know, I love it.
But yeah, I think that's great. We had a question come in as well, and I'm sure not the only person who has lived this in their life. Any tips on getting customers to agree to case studies and testimonials? Could be the industry I'm in. She's in the legal, but we're really struggling to get that. Wondering how you position it, and any tips. I'm sure not just in the legal, we have all been there, done that, lived it. So any tips you guys have for her?
Yeah, that's a really rough one because like our legal team, when we're asked to do things, is pretty lenient, but we've got customers like the Chicago Bulls, like crazy stuff that's like, we had to jump through hoops on hoops to figure out if we could use them in anything. And I think a good segue to some of this is to use like your reviews on G2 or your reviews on AppSource or wherever, and see if that stuff is already public somewhere else. And then reach out to that customer and say, do you mind if we put this into like a quote deck or a quote on our website? Because they've already given that consent somewhere else. They're more likely to give it to you for your resources. The customer story or the case study is a lot harder. But I think starting with some of those small things they've already kind of given up is an easy kind of way to get a little more out of them.
I like that. Start small, like if you can't get the full case study, at least if you get that quote in there, it's a good start. Something we've done in the past too is not put the name, but just say, oh, it's someone in the legal industry about this size in this area, kind of whittles it down without saying the name. It gets the gist of it out there as well. So maybe those are kind of baby steps, but yeah, that legal industry, that's a tough one. Bribery can only get you so far, and in that one, I think you're kind of stuck. So I hope that helps a little bit. If you have any follow-up questions, put them in the chat or let us see your face. We don't mind.
I have something to add. It doesn't really help answer Claire's specific situation, but it's at least something that I'll put out there. So we have a long-standing tradition at Innovia that every month when we have our staff meeting, we have a section dedicated in our meeting to wow statements. Wow statements are any conversation, whether external or internal, where somebody just said something really positive about the work that was done. So we often use that piece of information as a starting point of who to reach out to. So, oh, hey, XYZ customers said they loved this project. Now is as good of a time as any while they're still satisfied to go in. Now, that doesn't really get around the legal ramifications that could come with
Yeah.
that, but it's at least another idea to put out there for anybody who
Yeah.
is looking for inspiration for case studies.
Totally.
Yeah, and speaking to the sales team too, they know who's chiller and who's cooler about getting stuff from their teams, because they've lived it too a bit and getting the sale. So, what kind of stats do you guys do together? I know Monica's talking about NPS. I think that's the perfect segue into talking about stats. And what do you guys look at together as a measure, KPI? How do you measure success? Not only like they have their revenue goals, we have revenue goals, or we have lead goals. What other stats do you look at together? Greg, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for this one.
Okay, sure. Well, as I mentioned, I have a history with marketing and sales, and I think it's so important to have both of those teams communicate. And I always look at marketing as I take the approach of how, if I was back in sales, what would I like to see, handed to me so I can be successful. So there's, in the world of marketing, you're always talking about different metrics, right? We're talking about KPIs and click-through rates and return on investment, what's our spend, and that sort of thing. So to boil it down, we have a lot of different metrics that we can share with sales. It could be something as easy as email click-through rates, which is something we don't do all the time, but on occasion we'll go through, how are our email campaigns running? How are our click-through rates, open rates, unsubscribe rates? We don't want too many of those. But another metric could be website traffic that we can share with our sales team. Most companies, I would think, have some sort of website tracking tool. And we put all this information together and to advantage the sales team. So just think about if you were in a sales cycle, and if I can provide the sales team with, hey, this prospect has a very high email click-through rate. This prospect is on our website a lot. This website, the website tracking tool that we have even can track down to how long they've been on our website and what page they're on. That's information that we can, feed to our sales team. In addition to that, at ICEPS, we have yearly like kickoff meetings, and we take all the stats from the previous year. Like I said, we're marketing, we're always looking at stats and KPIs, and it's a long meeting, I'll tell you. But we go through the entire year, like what's our return on investment? What was working last year? What's our ideal customer? Like what kind of SIC code they're in, like sales volume? What's our biggest return on investment? And these are planning sessions where we want to make sure that sales team also has input so we can plan ahead for the coming year. So some of these are short-term stats that we can share with the sales teams, and some are much longer.
I think that's, we forget that marketing is an art and a science, and that you guys work together on the stats for planning. I think that's key as well, so that you don't get derailed halfway through the year. Yeah, there'll be derailments halfway through the year as well, but at least you all start on the same point and the same page. That planning piece working together, I think that's key to bringing you guys closer together. Tim, what are some of the stats you guys look at?
Yeah, so I think we're often in the same boat that Greg is in. Like, we have a lot of information that we could be sharing. So, I don't necessarily have like a long-winded set meeting that we have every week that we go through. But what we do believe in is transparency with all of the data. Like, we don't want that marketing silo where we're keeping everything to ourselves. So We have quarterly sales meetings, and at those, like, I'll sort of pick a handful of different topics to cover at that specific meeting. But
Mhm.
then anytime somebody asks about a metric or if it comes up in a conversation, I will share that metric with them. We don't keep anything hidden from our sales team, even if it's a number that I'm not super proud of.
And
Good point.
I learned that very recently, actually, that some of the best information is when sales gets back to you and said, these were really poop leads. Like, and to learn why they weren't good, that helps you learn as well. Like, okay,
Mhm.
so what in our messaging doesn't make sense as well? So it's important to share the good and the bad because we learn from both. So yeah, that's good. Not to sharing is caring. Transparency is key. I think
Mhm.
that's how we can all work better together. Um, Greg, Mike had a question. If you were able to tell us which tool that you're using to identify visitors to your website,
Sure.
either put in the chat or.
Oh, sure, I can share. We've had a couple throughout the years. The one we use now is called Lead Feeder. It's all one word, and it's great. It doesn't pick up every single company. However, it's a great tool to find out, again, who's on your website, how long they've been there, where it
Mhm.
came from, Google organic or click, CPC, referral traffic.
Mhm.
And you could even set up, like I said, different pages and you can weigh them. So the one with
Mhm.
the heaviest weight I have is the contact us page. And sometimes I see these leads floating around there and they're on the contact us page and then it'll click through. And that's a great information to share with your sales team. If
Mhm.
you're following a lead, maybe for some reason the sales cycle got kind of stalled, but now they're back on our sales, funnel, and now they're back on the sales process, and then they're clicking through email marketing, and they're clicking through our web pages, and to give that information to sales is really valuable.
Yeah, no, that comes back to that transparency,
Yeah.
sharing. I think that's really where we have to bust down those doors and really start the conversation between each other. So what kind of stuff does sales ask marketing for? Tim, what are some of the requests you get from the sales team?
Yeah, probably the thing that we most frequently get a request from for sales is help with a specific presentation that they're doing for their client. They want to have a little bit of marketing pizzazz, if you will, into whatever it is, especially if it's a really, big project that they're trying to land with an existing customer or just a brand new company that they're trying to land. So that's a lot of the work I've done in my earlier years at Innovia, was helping them build out the templating to do all of that. And really what I'm trying to do is enable them to do some of these things on their own without necessarily having to have marketing do a brand new
Mhm.
presentation for them every single time. So we've done some training sessions with them to sort of show them, how do you make your PowerPoints look pretty? I've done a series of blogs on that we also shared with the team. If you want some tips, I wrote this piece of content that talks about the basics, how to use the different main parts of the program. So that's the biggest thing that they ask us for, and then just other random documentation from time to time, which, like I said, once again, as much as possible, I try to template that out. So every time we get a different request, we're not redoing it for them every single time.
As someone who was a formatting fairy for a number of years, enabling them so that it's not as bad by the time you
Mhm.
get it,
Yeah.
really helps on your time. And for sure, there's things like if you have a template or you've kind of trained them a little bit up on it, even if it's rushed and they'll do it without you seeing it, at least you know that it's closer to the standard or quality that you want and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
templating is key. It takes longer up front, but worth it in the end.
And I will
Yeah.
add one thing that I've done that I think has been helpful for them. Whenever they turn a new slide deck into me, I will pay close attention to the way that they're trying to format their slides. Because sometimes that's what I think when I put a deck together, like this is how I like to lay out my slide. But then like I see enough times that I'm like, oh, they're laying it out this specific way. So what
Yeah.
I'll do with that information is take that and put it into something that, you know, really looks nice. So that's a tip I would have, like use that information, see how they're formatting it and use that for your benefit.
Yeah, no, because if it's easy for them to use again,
Exactly.
hopefully they won't come back to you and
And
yeah,
I've
but
seen that the amount of times that they've come back, that's why I said I did it a lot in my early years, because we've done so much work with that templating over time that frankly, we don't do much of that anymore because we
So
build out the
nice.
template so much that they don't.
Yeah. Good job.
yeah, no, snaps to you on that one because
Yeah.
yeah, it's key to relinquish that and for them to not to get it back in a totally different look and feel and they're like, this is not what I did. I'm not gonna ask them next
Yeah.
time. Very important. Sam, what are some of the requests that you get?
More leads. So
was
we
waiting for
I
have,
that
want
one.
to change my answer.
right? I was like, come on. The first thing that I get asked is more leads. Where are the leads? We have kind of a running joke in the marketing chat that is, where are the leads? So we have all these gifts we send each other all the time because it comes up every day in some conversation. And like, we're growing at 80% year over year. We're doing amazing, but like, we still always are going to get that question, regardless of your growth, regardless of where you're at to goal. The sales team is always going to want more, right? So that's what we get more often than not. But I would say when it comes to like actual tactical kind of things, something we get asked for a lot is competitive documentation. Give us a write-up on the module that's similar to ours at our 3 competitors or our biggest competitor. Or battle cards have become like one of my favorite pieces of content as a marketer, like giving them, again, solution selling, what questions to ask those prospects, what are the 3 things that are going to be pain points and make sure they have them before you try to sell them. Partners in the space who can fill in the gaps we can't, or any of that kind of stuff. And just like a one sheet has been something that in my previous role, they didn't ask for. We kind of provided it and it was really valuable. But in Flowcast days, it's something we didn't have and came about through our kind of competitive intelligence team. Like, we need something that they can essentially hang up, which nobody does really anymore at home or whatever, but keep readily available so that when they speak to Business Central prospects, they know the 3 things that are going to get them moving forward in our pipeline process. So those are probably the top 2. And then presentations, always. Can we have 1 slide on that? Can we have 3 slides on this? Can you add it to the demo deck we already have and all that fun stuff? So
I'm throwing this one out here because now that you're saying it, do you guys have any tools where you curate all of these 1 slides that you have? Because you're saying that and I'm having PTSD over here. Yeah.
We use Showpad for all of our like documentation content for internal purposes. So that's where any of our like sales decks are in there, our demo decks are in there, our executive decks, any one-off little teeny things are in there too. The walkthrough from a training perspective or the walkthrough for a customer for each kind of thing.
Yes.
So not free, but definitely a good thing for us so that we can track like what salespeople click on which ones and how often. And when I started about a year ago, the usage of Showpad was pretty light. And then we kind of grew a product marketing team and really dedicated sales enablement programs. And now it's like they are downloading customer stories every week or every day. They are taking those new slides we just created on a regular basis. So we love to track salespeople. Any way you can track them, because they're going to ask you for 100 things. But if you don't know that they're actually using it, is it a priority? Right? So that's how we've kind of slated, like, you want another customer story. I am creepy, Monica. I will track that. But I like, it takes our team, 40 hours to get a really good customer story together that's totally like on all the eyes that everybody needs to see it. And it's like, you don't ever use the ones we have. So I'm not gonna bend over backwards and run like 40 feet out of the way to get you what you need if you're not gonna use it. So you kind of gotta like, I find with the sales team, you kind of gotta have a thick skin to push back on things, and data is the way to do it. So
Great tip, and not just for being creepy and stuff like that, but
I
it's
don't
your
think it's
time.
creepy.
You're like, I know I've done this PowerPoint before. Which
Yep.
PowerPoint deck was this in? So just having that all curated together saves
Yeah.
you time. And the creepy factor is like the cherry on top after
Oh,
that
it
to make
is.
sure people are
Then
looking
you
at
get
it.
so many less questions once you like, here's the data on that. Until this increases on your team side, we're gonna deprioritize that.
Marketing is an art and a science, and I think that is the tip of the day here. Data
Mhm.
stays king. I don't care which presentation we do or which chat we have, it always comes back to numbers don't lie, or they're hard to argue against. So keep that in your back pocket as always. I'm seeing the time fly by, and so
No.
I'm going to take a little commercial break and talk about our sponsor, Stratos, who thank you very, very much for sponsoring our chat today. Thanks to them, they keep these monthly chats going. Just a little bit about them. They have been in the Microsoft ecosystem for over 30 years now as a business application. They provide all tools, services, resources, and support that a Microsoft partner could need to build a profitable cloud solution business, from Microsoft 365 to Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, Azure services. Cloud is where it's at today. Everyone has to get up there. So if you're a current partner, a reseller, a MSP, ISV, please contact them if you have any questions. And thank you again for supporting our little marketing chat. There you go. A cool plug from Tanya. Oh, that I'm trying. I'm putting my sales hat on, and
Yay.
I'm taking off my marketing hat and trying to say, I don't know how to say thank you any other way. So as we continue on, did you, I guess the big question is, has sales and marketing always worked well together? How did you bring them together into one big happy family? Greg, how about you start us off on this one about how do you bridge the gap, especially since you've lived on both sides? What are some of your tricks of the trade?
Sure. Well, I think every company may be different. You know, some companies, of course, have a sales and marketing director, so they're doing both. But then when we're talking about, you know, different salespeople and different marketing people in different roles, in my case, it was out of necessity. I joined ICEPT over 10 years ago. They didn't have the marketing director. They just had a sales and marketing director. So I came on board just to focus on marketing. And we have a sales director. And like I said before, it's just super important to keep that communication going. You know, as Sam was saying, marketing is always gonna ask where are the leads, and I'm always asking, well, what happened to the leads?
Exactly.
You know, so you have to work together. But in my case, it was just out of necessity. They really needed a marketing director, and I think it's really important to have that, again, communication between the both.
Do you have meetings with both teams, or
Yeah.
how do you bring them together, or do you just have like a chat where you say stuff to each other, or what kind of stats?
Yeah, we have weekly meetings. This is a weekly meeting with the sales director, our account manager, and even our cloud practice manager. So we all meet once a week, and we just kind of review different things. It could be the different stats that I kind of shared with you. It could be different things. It could be what's going on in the marketplace, how are sales going? Have you seen any different buying behavior? Because when you're in marketing, you're one step removed from the end customer. So you just want to get little feelers out there, like what's going on with our customer base? What are you seeing in the marketplace? What's going on with consumer behavior? So that's what we have weekly meetings, but the kickoff meeting that we have is once a year in January.
All right. But that weekly touch point, and I think it's interesting that you also have the account manager and the product manager in there too, or practice manager in there too, so that you're getting not just the sales, like everyone does sales from in a certain way or shape or form. So I like that you also bring this wider circle of sales into your meetings as well.
It's something that we can all benefit from. I could gain something from our account managers. It may be that customers are driving towards a certain product area. I mean, that's something I want to market to, and marketing has something to share with sales. So it all, in our case, it all works together. I think it works out good.
Yeah, no, I like that we only think sales and marketing, but sales and marketing have a wider scope to all of it. Great. Sam, sorry, reading two things at once.
Oh, it's
What
okay.
did you guys do to bring your sales and marketing teams together?
We have all kinds of just like quick touch bases, meetings. We share a couple of tools, which really helps as well. Like we use 6th Sense, and that budget is co-shared. So the ownership is co-shared. And that makes kind of life easy because you've got to come together on the goals and how to build the platform together anyway. Then we do like a weekly just touch base with all of the sales managers. Just again, to get those, what are the 3 big things you're hearing? What are the things we can kind of speak to? What are the gaps? That kind of stuff. And then we do a quarterly business review with them. They do it with us and kind of all of our teams. We actually just finished it yesterday. But every quarter we do kind of a recap on how it's been going and what we're doing next, and kind of all sign off on that. I find having everybody kind of verbally be there and say like, I agree in the room really does help move some of the initiatives forward. Instead of having kind of a passive call where people aren't participating, they're just kind of listening, but doing something else while you're trying to make your plans. Like, got to make sure they're really tuned in. And one thing that I think is funny. So one of the questions was, did your team always work together? So I'll speak to my previous role. So when I was at PaceJet, I was there for about 4 years. And when I first started, I quickly noticed it was a sales-driven organization. Some organizations are sales-led, some are product-led. At least in my experience, they're kind of one or the other, especially in the SaaS space. And when I first started at PaceJet, it was very much like the sales team runs the show, and you're here and you're writing some things for the blog and you're tap dancing around at trade shows. But there wasn't really an understanding of how do we work together to grow together. And about a year into my time there, we hired a new VP of sales. And the day he walked in, I'm like, we are going to be best friends. I am moving my team next to you. My office is next to yours. We're going to meet every morning for a cup of coffee in the office. And he now still is one of my treasured relationships. We actually just chatted this morning. So I think it's the effort that you put in and how much you're willing to give in order to get what you need out of it. And then like that sales team now, some of my best friends, I was in one of their weddings. So it's really about like, how do you build the rapport and the trust and really do what you say you're going to do. So it goes both ways.
I think building a relationship is key. I'm stealing your words, Monica. It's so important and the effort you put in to what you take out of it. It's like break down those walls. The same thing where in one of my previous companies, we were like, okay, we have to stop finger pointing at each other. We all get into a room. Let's hash out our issues. Let's be transparent about them and move forward. I think that is the biggest thing. And just that cup of coffee, and you're not against anybody, and you're working together and being open. I think that's the common theme that all 3 of you bring to the table today is take the time to really learn what the other one does and vice versa. And you won't just be the blog person or the Christmas party planner or the Chotsky order or whatever
The
other
lunch
random
delivery service.
Let's start a list in the chat of all the random stuff that marketing has to do that comes into the
list is too long.
Yeah, too long. Let's not air all of our dirty laundry here. Moving on, I was like, holy smokes, 15 minutes left. Greg, you talked about this a bit about bringing other teams into the mix. For instance, the consulting implementation team. Do you guys, who else do you think are key players in strengthening that overall company content and stuff like that? Greg, do you want to go into a little more detail?
Sure.
on it?
Well, for example, we're doing a webinar next month on Power BI and Business Central. So for that, I brought in our data analyst that we have for Power BI and also one of our implementers. So that's definitely an example where we can bring in other resources, other employees to help, make this webinar success. Back to our planning meeting that we have every year. It's really the whole team. It's the account manager, it's the sales director, it's the cloud practice manager, it's the president of the company, it's the administrator, and we just it's a planning what we did last year, what worked, and how we're going to plan for the year coming forward for success. So that's the whole team working together. How can we work better this year, compare metrics to last year, and what can we improve on?
I think that's it. Sam, do you have any words of wisdom on this one?
Yeah, I always bring in product. We've got a pretty technical solution, and find that maybe sales and the marketing lingo we use doesn't totally align with the truth of the product. For instance, we use Excel as one of our biggest integrations, and there are some things that are, Excel codes or whatever, that if we don't say them the right way, they mean something else, right? So it's like, how do you understand the mind of the product, but also try to pizzazz it up and make it fun, right? I mean, it's accounting software, but accountants are really cool. But how do you make it cool and make it real, right? So always bringing them in. We have very fortunate to have a product marketing team who's in the weeds on personas and all of former accountants as well. So great sounding boards for that 2-line message. They're like, that means nothing to me, but if you're more direct about it, then I get what you mean. So learning from, those who are boots on the ground too. So
I know, I think having that sounding board, like we think it sounds nice, but if it doesn't mean anything to anyone, well, kind of useless. So good tips, use them as, and I think then you get the buy-in too from them as well, that okay, they're not just writing stuff to write stuff either. So very cool. Last but definitely not least question is if marketing teams are having a hard time getting sales to work with them, what is the one piece of advice would you give them? Tim, what advice would you have for all of us on the call today?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, like I said at the top of the call, I was very fortunate to come into a company that's a lot of these relationships were already there. So, I feel like my perspective is going to be a little different because I've had a much easier go than I think a lot of you have. With that being said, I do still have that time to time where I feel like I have to pull teeth to get a piece of content from somebody. And sometimes what I find, not always, but sometimes, is that there's an underlying reason for why they're hesitating to give me the piece of content. I mean, sometimes it's going to be busyness, sure, but other times, if we ask them to do a webinar, it may be, well, I've not done a webinar before. I am nervous to do a webinar. So my piece of advice would be, to an extent, how can marketing help meet the sales team where they're at? So, if that's where they're at, if they're uncomfortable, what are some things marketing can do to help make them comfortable? And some of the tactics we've taken to accomplish that: do a pre-recorded session instead of live, because that takes some of the burden off. Another idea is doing a sort of walkthrough presentation before, so if nothing else, they get the lay of the land of how all of the software works. So when they get to the live one, they don't feel as stressed out about it. So yeah, that would be my advice across the board is see if there's a reason for why they're hesitating, and if it's something you can help with, find a way to help them out with it.
I think
Yeah.
that's great advice. And that comes back full circle too on your transparency and just being open and honest, because there's
Yeah.
nothing worse than watching a webinar where you can tell that the person is uncomfortable and you're like, sweet
Mhm.
child, can we,
Mhm.
I
And you're
am
like, I
done.
just want it to be over for them.
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So that doesn't help anybody's cause. So if you can alleviate the stress, and planning is key when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's a great tip to, and then they'll come back to you, or they won't hide next time they have a question as well. So
Yeah.
love that. Any final tips, Sam, for the group?
Yeah, per typical Sam, a little alternative answer. Drop the ego. That is one thing that has made my sales enablement life so much easier. They think they're amazing. We think we're amazing. Let's level the playing field and drop the ego, right? Like we all have the same goal, which is fill the funnel, close the business, right? So if you are going through some sort of back and forth on something, again, find the data, boil it down and say, I understand your point of view. Here's some data on mine. Is there a compromise we can do? Is there something in the middle that we could test? Because really, like, it comes down to that relationship and all of that as well. But another thing that I find really helpful as kind of a piece of advice is to manage to dates. We'd love to say, let's do this quarter, or let's do this soon. But I think giving salespeople a goal, which is a date, right? They're very goal driven, very quota driven, right? So if you say, by the 15th next month, we want to have this webinar pre-recorded, and I need you to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to send you these reminders on these days, right? Like sometimes you kind of got to project manage it, right? And it makes your life a little bit more in the weeds tactical, but you're meeting them where they're at, which is they're focused on a goal. They're focused on another prize than doing your webinar. But if you can remind them that webinar is going to drive the lead gen they're looking for, give them a date of when they need to be active and participant or participative, whatever, then you're good to go, right? So those are my big things. Relationship, ego, manage to dates.
Take notes, everyone. I think we kind of hit upon that all throughout our call today. Any final words, Greg, before I close up the session?
I was just going to chime on with Sam is stating the benefit. You know, why are we doing this? And make it easy for them. Make it easy for the path of least resistance, right? And we all have a common goal, as Sam, Tim were saying, just to kind of fill the funnel and get some sales, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think making it easier for them makes it easier for us, and then everyone works together. So ego, check your ego at the door, build that relationship, and figure out how to work better together. I think take those three things away with you today. And thank you very much, Tim, Sam, and Greg. I thought this was a great session. I am going to have to re-listen to it to take notes because I can't do two things at once. But there's a lot of cool tools too in the chat that I think everyone will appreciate. And this is when I do our shameless plug to, if you enjoyed this session, please come to our November session on the successes and failures of marketing automation. We're going to be talking about, is email marketing really dead, or has it just changed? And all of those fun things around it. So please sign up for it if you haven't already. If you've missed any sessions in the past, we have now opened it up that you can sign up for a one-year subscription to listen to the past sessions where we've talked about a whole smorgasbord of different cool topics that I think are interesting, and I think you guys will too, for those who've been there in the past. November is our last one of 2022. I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. So we are marketers, so we like to plan. We will start planning for 2023 soon. Please tell us what you think. Do you like this format? Do you want a different format? Do you want just like a Dear Abby where everyone just kind of calls in their problems and we try to answer them? What would you like to see the Channel Marketing Academy do in 2023? And yes, we are always looking for panelists. We ideas, topics, you name it. We are looking to you for content, if that's pretty much what we say every month. But yes, as marketers, we know what it means to try to search for topics and ideas. So please, please, let us know what you think. Tell us, even if it's just, we love you guys. That means I'm not talking to myself for an hour. That would be fabulous. Yes, please have pity on Vanna White. Thanks again, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this one. And thanks again, Tim, Sam, and Greg. It was a real pleasure.
Yes,
Thank
thanks
you,
for having us.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye.